All right, welcome back to the Canadian Gun Vault, Behind the Vault Door. My name is Mark Morelli. I'll be your host for tonight's podcast. Flying solo tonight and thinking to myself, what is it that I can talk about that relates to the firearm community? What is it that I can talk about that'll be relevant? You know, let's have some relevant conversation. And I've heard that thrown around, and I'm really excited about the idea of having relevant conversation. I think that we ought to be looking far beyond guns. You know, I love guns, and I really want to see some laws changed relating to firearm legislation. You know, like firearm regulation. I think that there needs to be some clearly defined terms, and I think that there needs to be property rights established in law so that we don't feel like you could come take our stuff anytime you feel like, or when some majority government comes along that likes to spend money like it's pouring out of a bucket. And at the same time, perhaps potentially they've been, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's been brought to their attention that perhaps our borders are being compromised. And I mean, I'm sure there's those of you that are going to be sitting out there right now saying, oh boy, he's going to break into a conversation that's going to lead to anti-immigration sentiment. I am so pro-immigration. I am the product of immigration. I am so proud that, you know, my grandparents traveled across the sea to start a new life with nothing. And I mean, I don't know the exact dollar figure, but I'm sure my grandfather came here with $10 in his pocket and a suitcase. And they made out okay. And I mean, they got along, and of course there were some growing pains, but ultimately, healthy contributing members to the community that they decided to plant themselves in. And planted roots they did. They had lots of kids, and I'm one of the grandkids, and I'm very proud of the fact that my grandparents, traveled all that way and, broke through barriers and had to deal with racism, like real racism, when things were more than just words, and that people were really mistreated. And it just seems like everybody's getting offended these days. And I quite honestly, I'm sick of it. Every time I turn around, there's somebody that's like going, ooh, be careful what you say. What? You know what? Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't watch what you say, but definitely I think it's a good idea, that people should have some kind of sense of humor out there. Like, I'm starting to be very concerned. Like, I mean, I wonder how comedy's going to suffer through this. Long-term impact effects of dealing with, political correctness. It seems to be so pervasive now, and it's just like everybody's going to be offended by something. God, I'm offended by nothing. I don't know. I must be an anomaly in this day and age. I have some pretty conservative thought processes, but at the same time, I'd like to think I'm fairly liberal in terms of my attitude. Hey, if you want to be gay and be married, hey, by all means, go ahead. If you want to practice, a religion where, you're deciding that your God is going to be, a marijuana joint, hey, feel free. Hey, you practice any religion you like. I'm pretty easy going that way. When you think about it, I'm sure a lot of Canada is that way. Like, I don't know where along the way we became this bunch of racist bigots. I mean, I always remembered Canada being a very tolerant nation, and it felt like one up until a couple of years ago. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed like, well, we're a bunch of racists if we don't just allow anybody to come in and, plant themselves in our communities without proper screening, which is something of, a point of contention, I'm sure, for a lot of Canadians. You don't have to be racist to be, needing to feel secure in this day and age. I mean, it looks like the other side of the world's falling apart. When we look at Europe, we see a lot of things on TV, and I don't want to be accused of spreading, any kind of fear mongering, but I mean, if you look at the other side of the world, it looks pretty, dim if you look at the news. Now, I'm sure they show the worst of the worst and all, and nowadays with coverage being what it is, but I mean, there just seems to be a marked increase in problems in the world, and I won't go beyond calling them problems. The fact that we now have, what seems to be to the average Canadian a kind of, flimsy immigration process whereby, people are jumping borders, and we're setting up, accommodations for them. And now we've got major conservative leaders telling us that the cost of housing them, and given the rate of the number of people that actually seek out employment, that we're going to be in some financial trouble in a very short period of time. So, I mean, I don't want to say that the situation has been engineered for failure and to cause some form of economic collapse. But I mean, if we've got major leaders presenting numbers that are looking really bad, and you've got current Liberal leadership making comments like the budget will balance itself, I think we have cause to be concerned as Canadians. Like, forget guns. I don't know. Like, I'm watching the Liberal government, and I never hated on government in my life. I've always, just kind of said, well, okay, that's the government. That's what the government decides. I mean, growing up, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, okay, well, I really wasn't involved in the process. But now that I've seen what appear to be a lot of mistakes being made and a lot of obvious conflicts of interest are being pointed out, and you've got people being accused of major ethical conduct breaches, and I mean, these issues don't seem to be addressed. I don't know. It seems like it almost feels like a year and a half ago, the Prime Minister was accused of doing something illegal and contrary to some policy and law, and that the RCMP had some involvement, and yet we haven't gotten any answers on that. Now, I don't know how long it takes an investigation to be completed by government. I know things happen a little more slowly at the government level, depending on, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal. But I mean, that's kind of a slow process. He either did it or he didn't do it. I mean, if there's something written that's concrete in law, and we can prove this relatively quickly, like, what's taking a year to come up with an answer to that? I mean, he's being asked, how many times have you spoken to the ethics commissioner? And we hear 23 times that he was willing to work with the ethics commissioner, and answer any and all questions she might have. He said that 23 times. So he really didn't answer the question, which is, the answer is a number. So here we are, presented with a government that doesn't seem to have a true appreciation for numbers. Whether it be they're, telling us how much things are going to cost, or, we've got payouts that now appear to be fostering a whole new movement of people complaining that they've been mistreated and the government was complicit in it happening. And so now we've got somebody new coming forward saying they want to sue for $50 million. I imagine this country will be flat broke in no time. If we start to accept responsibility. And for the person that made the decision not to fight that in court, and set that, dangerously, irresponsible, for lack of a better term, precedent. I mean, it would have been worth it just to fight it. Even if it cost us double, who cares? I mean, we're shoveling money outside this nation, like, by the truckload, it seems. 22 billion this way, 30 billion that way, and it's all leaving the country. And I'm going, well, hold on. I mean, as a Canadian citizen, we're facing some economic sort of, not great times, and we're shipping money by the billions outside the country. We're kind of redistributing wealth. I grow very nervous about anyone that says that they admire a dictatorship and then pushes socialist-like policies down our throats. I mean, even with the majority government, I think that it's kind of safe to say that we should be able to have some say in what goes on there. So, I mean, at this point, no more rubber ducks. I would wonder why we couldn't, as a nation, start to demand that they actually, put a stop on all checks leaving the office until we sort out this ethical matter. I think that that's a fair, sort of request. If our leadership is guilty of something illegal, before he's even started to get going, and now, he's sending money all over the globe and spending money in the country like crazy, instituting policies that make no sense, and fighting with the opposition in a way that I've never seen before. They're not really answering questions. And so I think we need answers, and I think that we need answers from all of our members of parliament. So I'm going to encourage everybody to call into their member of parliament first thing after getting this podcast. I think that it's really important that you contact your member of your parliament and let them know that we want answers, to some questions that have long been asked by Canada. What's going on with that ethical matter involving the Prime Minister, and why do we have all these conflicts of interest? And, some people say some things that maybe, they haven't been in front of a camera before. You can forgive certain things, but major ethical breaches and, major conflict of interest, failing to disclose that you have business interests in areas affected by your policy. Like, I mean, there can't be any bigger conflict of interest. And I mean, I know that you probably, hey, if you're as rich as that guy is, maybe you can forget a villa, in France or wherever the hell it was. But hey, I think though that your job is, to lead the country in matters relating to finance. I'd like to think that you'd be able to, disclose all your assets, kind of gather it up. It's kind of important that you not miss any. If you create policy that has a positive impact on your business, you shouldn't be in that position. And I mean, there should have been a declaration of conflict, and there wasn't. Or the guy should keep better track of his stuff. If you're going to get into that position, you better know. So, he should have gone to his people who cracked down on their teams and said, find me everything and bring it all here. And they didn't do that, which really begs the question, what's going on? We should demand answers for that. And I mean, if it comes to light that he knew and he, for some reason or another, decided not to disclose that, I mean, there's no reason why we can't remove that guy from office. I mean, we should be able to demand that he step down, and we should do that through our members of parliament. And so what that means is you call your member of parliament's office and ask to speak, right, to somebody about this matter, and watch. They'll scramble, right? People, if we flood their offices with calls, their assistants, God bless them, they're going to be so overrun with work, they're not going to be able to handle anything else. So if you've got a real problem, with some of the things going on, it doesn't have to relate to guns. So that's kind of why I'm, doing this podcast. It's so much more than that. As Canadians, we should be concerned. As gun owners, we should be concerned. There's some obvious things that are wrong, standing right out and staring us in the face. If we don't do anything about those things, we're really doing ourselves this grand disservice. So anyway, moving right along, I'm thinking about how much I love shooting. I love shooting so much, I miss it. For the people out there that think that I spend, all this time on the range and I pull the trigger, I mean, they fall into the same category of people that think that they're all my guns. They're not. And I really don't get to pull the trigger that often, which is why when I do videos, I'm so freaking nervous that I'm going to miss and that I'm going to sound and or look foolish. It's kind of an ongoing experience, for me every time I get in front of the camera, to get this horrible sense of self-conscious sort of behavior. I suddenly I want to babble and the words won't come off my lips correctly. And to think of all the things to say about a gun, kind of on the fly, because I don't use cue cards or anything like that. I refuse to. And so for me to get in front of the camera and shoot guns and try and hit and talk about them and kind of do all that to, the tune of whatever ammo we have left, to do it with. If I screw up so many takes, the pressure starts to build because, the ammo supply starts to drop. So I'd love to be able to do, do it right on the first take, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. I remember that Tavor video, like that honestly, I was so tired at the end of that thing, Dave. It was really a great video to shoot. At the same time, it was exhausting because we had some problems, not with the gun itself, but just with the way things were kind of unfolding. Anyway, to do the filming that we do is so much fun, but like it really does represent the bulk of my shooting. And so I really don't have a lot of time to relax. I'd like to. There have been lots of days I've wanted to take off, but then, ultimately you decide that you want to work, because people are talking to me all the time, and it's really fantastic to hear from the people that message me, and I try and get back to y'all as quickly as I can. I can't always do it. It's tough because I have to live a life too amongst all the running around I do with the merchandise and going to post office, and it really has been kind of an exciting learning curve. The guy that owns the Esso station down the street is probably going to put his kid through college with the amount of driving around I do. But I love doing it. But getting together for photo shoots and going to different places and dealing with the merchandise pickups and drop-offs and sometimes meeting with people and then I want to make a little time for my own friends, and we're still trying to build this business. And make no mistake, it's a business, and I I've had to learn that too, because I want to give everything away for free, but I can't do that. I can't continue to do that. I still like to do that, but it's one of those things where, like, I mean, if we're going to continue doing this, we've got to, be generating some money. And so I kind of feel bad about the merchandise in a way. I love when people buy it. It's really, it's really a treat, to see those orders filling the box, and to know that happy people are going to be getting, things they want, and that they believe in what we're doing. I really do love the fact that there's people out there that feel as strongly as I do about change and how things are wrong, and what we might do to fix it, moving forward. And to have people actually, buy the merchandise and wear it and enjoy it, it's very satisfying for me personally, because I mean, this all started with a picture I took, and my delving into photography in a very limited way. Like, I mean, I love taking pictures. I loved drawing as a child, and pictures were just a natural extension of that. If I could see something that I really liked, and I love the idea of taking photographs of guns that might be a little bit different than other people's, and people have kind of pointed this out to me again and again. I just try and show the guns in a way that I see them, as works of art. And I love the idea of people enjoying them enough that they like it, and they tap that screen, and I see the likes. I mean, I know it shouldn't all be all about the likes, and I see a lot of people that probably view it, but don't necessarily like my stuff. I don't take it personally. It's not that important. I just love that people read what I write and enjoy it, and enjoy the artwork and the community and the friendliness. The Instagram page really has kind of grown into this wonderful space. I keep encouraging people from Facebook to come on over to the other side. I feel guilty about doing that, but occasionally I will mention to people, like, come on over. Instagram is cool. It's everything Facebook used to be. Simple. No news feeds and bullshit. A lot of pictures. You're gonna like it. And some people come over and they never look back. I think that people would exit Facebook if they knew how simple and easy Instagram was. And I mean, it's in your pocket all the time. Facebook's a little bit too much for a cell phone, I think, in my opinion. But I do it too. But it's just a little harder to hit the icons sometimes. But Instagram is actually so much simpler and uncomplicated, and I love that about it. So I really do enjoy all the personalities. I mean, there's just so many different people out there. Like, now I think we're up to like 53,000 now or something like that. Love to see that number get higher. I would ask that everybody kind of share it with their friends. I'm not saying jam it down their throats, but like definitely push it a little bit. If you've got a good group of people on your page, and you like what we do at the Canadian Gun Vault, feel free to share with your friends. Growing is what's going to make this thing bigger, and better. I want to see it grow larger. I think the bigger our voice gets is directly proportionate to the size of the people in our audience. So I'd like to see everybody share it with their friends, and just kind of do a little write up and say, what, you gotta follow this. If nothing else, you'll learn something. Really great photography. If you can write that, I mean, I say that without ego. I've gotten people talking about that with me, and these are the things that they're describing. And so, if you want to do that with your friends and let them know that we exist, and I think that's really the only limiting feature, is that, we've got to get out there to a larger audience. And so if you can carry our message, and our name, to the far reaches of the internet world, we'd love that. If you plant it in the forums and tell people, you got to try this, have a look at what he's doing, especially if you're in Canada. For our American listeners, we love you guys. You're fantastic. There's just so many great personalities in the U.S., that I love. Got Blue Collar John. He's a wild man. He's not afraid to say what it's on his mind. And like, just, guy looks like he just got out of like hardcore jail time, and yet he's a total sweetheart. Great guy. I think that sometimes judging people by the way they're looking is wrong. I think that gun owners as a group, we've definitely felt a little mistreated over the years. So I think it's really important that people get to know the personalities that are out there that are involved in the firearm community. And I tell you, I've met all kinds on the line. And I mean, the Instagram pages are very much like the people. They're just really entertaining. Dynamic personalities to be around. And, spending time on the line is just a great opportunity to meet fantastically responsible people that really enjoy something, maybe as much as you. And I mean, that's what you encounter at the range, just people that feel, very passionately about firearm ownership, and, they're excited about it. And something new came out, and they have to have it. I mean, there's so many people that enjoy this so much. To kind of arbitrarily take away any of that enjoyment, I would be very leery of any government that does that without, justifiable cause. So all this knee-jerk reaction to what's going on in the U.S., the Texas church shootings, the Las Vegas shootings, I mean, this really has nothing to do with Canadian firearm ownership. Certainly nobody up here stepped out of line that badly, and they're doing it with devices and things that we don't have up here. Like, I mean, it couldn't have any less to do with us, but allowing the government to capitalize on that sensational, bit of news coverage, a tragic event, to have the government suddenly pushing gun laws down our throat. I mean, like, we should really be calling them out on that. Anyway, that's about enough of a rant for a Monday night. I'm probably in dire need of more rest. I spend a lot of time working on things that, quite honestly, just burn up my day, and it's not uncommon to hit 18-hour day in the Canadian Gun Vault's life. But certainly there comes a point when I just get so exhausted, that I decide that I'm going to, just pack it in. So if you occasionally don't see me for a day or two, that's me just trying to unwind. It can be kind of stressful keeping up with, all the things that need to get done. Anyway, that's about all the time that we have for tonight's podcast. My name is Mark Morelli. I hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, Canada, have a great and safe night.